I was at my desk when the call came, and the words hit me like a slap. "The whole family went last week." My mom's voice sounded light, as if she were talking about the weather, but my chest tightened as the meaning sank in. I froze, staring at my phone, trying to understand how an entire trip could happen without me even knowing. The disbelief turned into a heavy ache as I opened Instagram. There they were. My siblings grinning in matching Mickey shirts, my dad laughing on rides, kids posing with characters. 5 days of memories, 5 days of laughter. And I was never even considered. My screen blurred as I scrolled, each new photo cutting deeper than the last. It was not just about a vacation. It was the realization that my family had erased me from their circle, that I was not part of what they called togetherness. I could hear my mom's cheerful voice echoing in my head, pretending it was a small oversight, but the evidence was in front of me. They had planned it, enjoyed it, and shared it proudly with the world, while I was left to watch from the outside. My hands shook as I set the phone down. Betrayal burned hotter than sadness. I had always given, always supported, but here I was, treated like a stranger. In that moment, I understood something had shifted forever. The story of my family and me would never be the same. I kept scrolling until I found something that stopped my breath. A group chat called Disney Magic 2025. My name was missing. I tapped it open and saw messages from months ago, excitement about hotel bookings, restaurant reservations, ride schedules, and even who would buy the matching shirts. I could see the start of the conversation before I had been removed, as if I had been deliberately cut out of the family plan. The photos on my cousin's page matched the details in the chat. Smiling faces in front of Cinderella's castle, kids eating oversized Mickey waffles at the Crystal Palace. My parents are standing in front of the Contemporary Resort, a hotel that charges nearly $500 a night. They had splurged on 5 days of luxury while telling everyone that money was tight. What twisted the knife deeper was hearing my mother's casual excuse. She had said they didn't want to burden me, that I was always stressed about finances. The truth was that I had covered 12 months of their mortgage, nearly $15,000, while living in a one-bedroom apartment where every cent mattered. I had stretched my salary to keep them afloat, yet I was the one painted as too poor to join. The contrast between what I knew and what I saw on the screen felt like a cruel joke. A family that wore matching shirts to show unity had erased me from their very memory. They smiled for photos under fireworks while I pieced together the evidence of my exclusion. The betrayal was not hidden. It was displayed proudly in every filtered picture and every comment, and I was forced to witness it from the outside. I thought back to college, to the years when my siblings went to parties and spring breaks while I juggled 2 jobs and full-time classes. I worked late shifts at a diner and spent weekends at the library desk, making just enough to cover tuition and rent. I never asked my parents for help. I carried myself through without a single borrowed dollar. That discipline carried into adulthood. When Jessica's wedding came around, I wrote a check for $3,000 to cover the flowers she could not afford. When Mike's car broke down, I paid $1,200 for the repairs so he could keep his job. When my cousin's tuition bill came late, I sent $4,500 to stop the account from being locked. Every time someone called in panic, it was my number they dialed. I had become the dependable one, the family's unspoken insurance policy. But while I carried the weight of their emergencies, they never thought to include me in their celebrations. They toasted together at Disney while I balanced my own budget and theirs. I gave freely, thinking loyalty mattered, yet I was erased when it came to joy. The math did not lie. Over the past few years, I had quietly given away more than $24,000. That money had kept mortgages current, cars on the road, and weddings decorated. But when the time came for making memories, my seat was empty by design. I was the safety net, not the sister. The injustice of it pressed down hard, but beneath the frustration, there was also a rising clarity. I was done being their silent provider while living as their outsider. At my nephew's birthday party, I sat at the kitchen table while the room buzzed with stories I could not join. They laughed about Dad screaming on the Tower of Terror, about little Tommy throwing up on the teacups, about inside jokes born in the days I was excluded. Every laugh reminded me that I was not part of their so-called family memory. Jessica's voice cut across the room when she said some people are just too busy with their careers to make time for family. She looked directly at me, her words landing like a slap, and the room went silent. Even the kids stared as if waiting for me to defend myself, but I swallowed the anger and stayed quiet. It was easier for them to cast me as the one who chose work over love. Later, I overheard my parents speaking to my aunt. They told her Emma is always stressed about money, and we did not want to burden her. I stood there, invisible in the doorway, listening to them explain away my absence as if it were my choice. They never mentioned that I had been paying their mortgage, $15,000 over the last year, or that I had sent Jessica $3,000 for her wedding, or Mike $1,200 for his car. The truth was, I earned a steady salary, $78,000 a year, enough to cover my $1,800 rent and still build savings. I was not drowning, I was disciplined, but my family preferred to paint me as fragile, anxious, too busy, and too poor to matter. It was easier for them to wear the mask of a united, joyful family than to admit they had chosen to erase me. Their laughter echoed through the house, but beneath it was a false story, carefully crafted to protect themselves. They wanted everyone to believe I had stepped away, when the truth was they had pushed me out. I stopped waiting for explanations and started gathering proof. At night, after long days at work, I sat at my kitchen table with folders and my laptop. I opened my bank account and printed every transfer I had made to it. I scrolled through text messages and took screenshots of every request, every promise to pay me back that never happened. Each page I saved was a piece of a puzzle, and I fit it together with a calm focus that felt almost clinical. The spreadsheet grew line by line. $3,000 for wedding flowers, $1,200 for the car repair, $4,500 for tuition, mortgage payments that stacked month after month until the total reached $15,000. The numbers were clear. Over 3 years, I had given them more than $24,000. I listed dates, amounts, and reasons in neat columns, as if I were preparing a financial report for an auditor. It was not anger that drove me in those nights. It was discipline. I treated every receipt and screenshot like evidence in a case I intended to win. There were no raised voices, no tears, only the steady work of documenting a truth they could no longer twist. The silence of my apartment was broken only by the hum of the printer and the clicking of keys as I added more proof to the file. While I built this archive, I also guarded something for myself. I checked the balance of my savings account, the one I had named Europe. 2 years of careful planning had brought it to $18,000, enough for flights, hotels, meals, and the freedom to leave the weight of their manipulation behind. Every dollar in that account felt like armor. Piece by piece, I was constructing a wall they could not scale, a wall of numbers, statements, and facts, a wall that separated who they said I was from who I truly had been. When it was finished, I knew I would no longer be standing in silence. I would be ready to face them with the truth in my hands. They walked into my apartment carrying bottles of wine and trays of food, expecting laughter and a warm table. Jessica smiled as if we were about to make peace, and my parents looked relieved. I stood by the dining table where no plates or silverware were set. Instead, the wood was covered in stacks of papers, neatly arranged in rows. Confusion spread across their faces as they sat down. My father asked what all this was, but I only slid the first folder toward him. Inside were bank statements showing 12 months of mortgage payments, each around $1,200, made from my account. My mother's smile faltered when she saw the totals, nearly $15,000 in her hands. Jessica leaned closer, only to see the receipt of $3,000 for her wedding flowers. Mike paled at the line showing $1,200 for his car repair. I spoke quietly, each word landing heavier than the last. You told people I was too stressed about money to join you. You told them I was too busy with work. Yet these records prove who kept this family afloat. I spread out screenshots of group chats where I had been removed, conversations about Disney hotels, and matching shirts that I was never meant to see. Their silence grew thicker than the air between us. Jessica whispered that it was not meant that way, but I cut her off with another stack of evidence. $4,500 for tuition, thousands more over the years. Every promise to pay me back has been broken. I looked at each of them in turn, steady and unshaken. You erased me from your memories while using my sacrifices. Tonight, I erase myself from your family. I handed them a final sheet, a printed statement listing every dollar owed with interest at 5%. The total glared back at them like a verdict. You have 30 days to repay me, I said. After that, we are done. No shouting, no tears. Only silence as they stared at the papers, realizing the weight of the truth they could no longer deny. I booked the ticket the next morning and felt a weight lifted the moment the confirmation email arrived. Weeks later, I stood on a balcony in Paris watching the Eiffel Tower glow against the night sky. The air felt different, not because of the city, but because I had chosen myself. I posted a photo with a simple caption, not to show off, but to mark the first step of freedom. From Paris, I went to Rome, walking through streets older than the idea of Disney itself. The ruins whispered stories of resilience and survival, reminders that empires fall yet strength endures. Then came Barcelona, with sunsets that painted the sky in colors no castle fireworks could imitate. Each city reminded me that real memories are built through courage, not staged shirts and curated smiles. Back home, relatives started asking questions. Why had Emma not been invited? How much money had she given? What else had been hidden? My parents and siblings scrambled to explain as the mortgage payments came due without my help. The narrative they had spun about me being too busy or too poor crumbled in front of the extended family, who now saw the truth. The contrast could not have been clearer. They had built their dream around a castle of illusions, while I stood free under European skies. Every sunset I captured was more honest than 1,000 photos from Disney. In choosing dignity over approval, I found a strength they could never take away. My story was no longer about being excluded. It was about finally walking into the life I had built on my own terms. I used to believe that if I gave enough, if I stayed loyal enough, my family would see my worth. But standing in another country with no one's approval to chase, I finally understood that respect is not a gift others hand to you. It is something you claim by refusing to be treated as less. The truth was harsh, but it was freeing. I did not need their invitations or their staged memories. What I needed was my own voice, steady and unshaken, telling me that I had chosen dignity over comfort and honesty over silence. That choice mattered more than their acceptance ever could. If you have ever carried others while being erased from their joy, you know how heavy that silence feels. But you also know the moment when you decide enough is enough. That is the moment when you step into your own strength. Have you ever chosen respect over approval? This community is a place where stories like that belong. Share yours below. Others need to hear it, and you deserve to have it heard.